Okay, welcome to this short presentation on an HSA versus a copay plan and really the way I love to sell HSAs. First of all, I always do desktop share presentations, so my client is seeing the same screen that you're seeing right now. Now what I've done is I've worked up a quote already in my zip code for 40-year-old male, 40-year-old female, and one child, so basically we're dealing with a family plan. And I've done an apples to apples comparison, so I have an HSA 100, this is golden rule, and I've applied the typical family HSA deductible, which is $5,000. And over here on the copay select, I've applied the typical copay deductible, which is $2,500, 80/20, $3,000 out-of-pocket max. Okay, I've tried to make everything apples to apples here. I've bought up the annual max from $3,000 to no annual max, so again, I can do an apples to apples presentation here. One thing that you're going to notice right off the bat is the clients are more prone to keying in on the lowest rate in the first place. So you're dealing with 276 here versus 357. So they're automatically going to be intrigued by the 276 and what the 276 has to offer. But more of what I enjoy talking about is liability, because what's the reason anyone's buying health insurance in the first place? Well, it's to protect your assets in case something stupid happens. So let's talk about that. First of all, let's talk about the exposure. We've got $2,500 deductible here on the copay plan. 80/20 with $3,000 out of pocket. Now that, of course, as it states here, is times 2 members of the family. So you do easy math, which is 2,500 plus 3,000 gives you 5,500 for one person. Multiply that times 2, and now what do you have? You have 5,500 times 2, or $11,000 in exposure. So you compare 11,000 in exposure to what over here? Well, just 5,000, because it's only one deductible, which is 5, 100% coinsurance with nothing after the deductible. So we have half the exposure. Actually, we have less than half the exposure with the HSA plan. And actually, you have less exposure even with one member of the family. One member of the family over here has to go 5,500. One member of the family here only has to go 5,000. So you're saving 500 in exposure for one person. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, of course, we get to our copay. But we do see the difference in rate is around the $80 a month range. So $80 a month, you would at least have to see the doctor on average about once per month or 12 times a year. And as we know, most people are absolutely not seeing the doctor 12 times a year. But forget about that anyways, because we still want to talk about potential liability or maximum exposure. Well, here we see that there is no charge after the deductible. So what happens if something major happens to you, major accident or major illness? Well, here the copays never stop. It's going to be a $35 copay even after the deductible is met, which most people do not take into consideration. But even more liability exists with prescription medication. Of course, prescription medication, there is no charge after the deductible. However, over here, the copays still exist after the deductible. But if you really want to point out some liability, and of course, different carriers do have different copay drug plans. But on Golden Rules, what I can point out is that Tier 4 medication is no copay. They have to pay 25% of the cost. Well, what is that going to be? Now, the answer is no one knows. If you're on expensive outpatient medication, let's say $4,000 a month of outpatient medication, then you're going to pay $1,000 a month. And you're going to pay that forever. It doesn't end, even though you've met your deductible. So you really don't know what your liability is going to be. And even at that, the way the copay plan tiers are structured, you really don't even know what your basic cost is going to be. Are you going to be on a Tier 2 medication at $35? Are you going to be on a Tier 3 medication at $65? You don't know, and you can't convey that to your client. Okay. So again, you're talking about liability as the best way to sell an HSA is that you're getting more for paying less. Again, just a real fast recap. Go back up here. 5,000 of liability versus 55 for one person. 5,000 of liability versus 11,000 for the family. You go down to the copay, which does not stop after you reach the deductible, and you get down to the prescription medication, which does not stop after the deductible, So on the copay plan, it's really pretty simple. If I'm talking to, for example, Tim, I say, Tim, I'd love to tell you how much you're going to pay for medical treatment on a copay plan. The truth is, I can't, because after you reach your deductible, it really is up in the air. It depends on what kind of medication that you're on. And I can't tell you what the medication cost is going to be. You have unlimited exposure. On EHSA, I can tell you, though. I can tell you that once you reach $5,000 for the year, you're not going to have any cost past the deductible. So that's basically how I sell the HSA versus the copay plan. I do get into the benefits of the HSA regarding tax treatment, but I save that until the end of my presentation. What I like talking about first is simply the benefits of the plan versus the benefits of the copay plan. I think that's a lot easier for people to follow than starting off the HSA presentation talking about the tax treatment of HSAs and the account. If you start talking about the account first, some people think, well, wait a minute now, I have to pay this and I have to fund my account. If I don't fund my account, then then how am I going to pay for treatment? Again, that's for the end of the presentation. But this is the very basics on how I sell HSAs versus copay plans. And of course, if you want more detailed training on HSAs and everything health insurance related, please visit IHIAA.